Well, Shadowlands ending was rough, wasn't it? As much as how the entire expansion was actually tiring and clearly did not end up as how it was meant to be. While I loved how they managed to tie up lots of dead ends with Sylvanas Judgment cinematic and 9.2.5 cinematic, they still felt a bit off the track, like they were rather belonged to another expansion or a pre-patch. Today, we will talk about why I think there could be a 9.3, what could it be, and why it was obvious. Before we start, I know most of you are tired of this Shadowlands plot and cosmic shit for a while, but just listen to me for a second, please. Let's get started. First, let us begin with why. There have been rumors that for Shadowlands, actually Zovaal was never meant to exist. Instead, Sire Denatrius would be the ultimate villain of the expansion. But to base the speculations aside, everyone was aware that Sire was the actual mastermind of Shadowlands, right? So, the actual clues we have. Let's start off with the untied lore of Shadowlands. There were a lot, so I will just mention a couple of them, which I thought were the most important. Yogg-Saron, the Drast, and their connection with Tross and Shadowlands. When we saw the Forge of Souls at the Sepulchre Raid cinematic, I was like, yes, it's time for the Yogg-Saron revelation. Nothing happened. Also, if you take a closer look at the end cinematic of Shadowlands, it also feels off. It feels like that rather having a complete single cinematic, they mix two cinematics into one another. What do I mean by it? Well, I believe the Zovaal's judgment scene was actually meant for a cinematic of its own that would be seen during patch 9.1 after it was revealed that Zovaal was the real arbiter all along, which I predicted 2 years ago, but I digress. And this was the first clue that content was clearly cut from Shadowlands at some point. This cinematic was never meant to happen. 9.2 was meant to end up with Anduin, not Zovaal. Which brings me to the second clue of the final patch, and Raid was definitely removed. Anduin himself, I mean the Raid boss Anduin, he was probably the most nerfed boss of modern WoW's history, if not of all time. And it was not simply because he was a bit overtuned, I mean he was, but his mechanics were so complex for a mid-tier boss, even on Heroic. And before it was officially revealed that Zovaal will be the final boss of the expansion, I was expecting Anduin to be the final boss of 9.2. Then 9.3 would come up with Zovaal or the Primus as the last boss. If that would turn out to be true, and Anduin would be the 8th and final boss of the Sepulchre of the First Ones, we would realize that we could not stop Zovaal and he would find his way into Azeroth's World Soul, using a gateway into a secret Titan facility. And yes, I believe, besides the Chamber of Heart, there is another Titan facility specifically purposed to keep Azeroth's World Soul in check. Maybe we will explore it in Dragonflight. And then we also realized that this Titan facility was actually hidden inside the Emerald Dream, and Tross had a connection with it. If you did not understand why I mentioned Drast and Tross, check out this video after this one. In that final raid, we would delve into Tross, actually an offshoot of the Emerald Nightmare, which was created by Yogg-Saron in the first place. In that final raid, we would fight for Azeroth's World Soul, with Lords of Dread, Rigalon, and Zovaal will be the final 3 bosses, just like they were in Sepulchre Raid. This way, they could have tied Yogg-Saron and Drast into Shadowlands lore perfectly, because Zovaal, using Forge of Souls, built under Icecrown Citadel, which was built by the blood of Yogg-Saron, and also too close to Pit of Saron, screams that Yogg-Saron was actually planned for Shadowlands. And I believe Sire Denatrius and Yogg could and should be the real masterminds and villains of Shadowlands. Argus, Moezala and Zovaal, all of them were usurpers, pawns the true god of death is still and will always be Yogg-Saron. And I believe this will be revealed if that mysterious patch 9.3 ever came up. But I have another idea for what patch 9.3 could have been, and I think you will like it. Zovaal would be the final boss of 9.2, but after the defeat we would learn about Primus's true colors. That he was the real evil in the background and planned his whole scheme to get rid of Zovaal completely, so he could easily rule over Shadowlands with his puppet Arbiter working as intended. After all, he was the one who invented the domination magic, so the Primus was the actual reason for Arthas's fall into Darkside, Scourge destroying Lordaeron and Silvermoon, etc. Zovaal only abused and forged into a weapon what the Primus used upon him, the chains and runes of domination. And that was all for today. Please drop a like and subscribe to the channel if you liked the video, and I will see you soon.